Imagine lying in bed, the quiet of the night around you, and suddenly a subtle tension in your body jolts you awake. That small, often unnoticed muscle, the one silently pulling your attention from rest, may be the reason sleep feels fragmented. Our bodies speak in whispers, and if we learn to listen, we can respond with precision rather than frustration. This 2-minute exercise targets that elusive muscle, a deep stabilizer nestled along your spine and around your ribcage, whose tension is intimately linked to stress, posture, and restless nights. By consciously engaging and releasing it, we allow a cascade of calming signals to travel through the nervous system, reducing the hyperalert state that often interrupts sleep. Over time, this mindful practice not only relaxes the muscle itself but restores a rhythm to the body that encourages restorative rest, revealing the profound dialogue between movement and relaxation, between awareness and physiology. The subtle tension that wakes us in the middle of the night often originates from a muscle most people rarely consider, a deep stabilizer that runs along the spine and interconnects with the ribcage and surrounding tissues. It is not a muscle we think about when we move through our day, yet it carries the cumulative weight of every posture, every slight misalignment, and every moment of stress. Its role is primarily structural, providing stability as we sit, stand, and move, but it is also highly sensitive to the nervous system's fluctuations. During the day, as we slouch over desks, cradle our phones, or engage in repetitive motions, this muscle adapts continuously, shortening, tightening, and holding tension without our awareness. Over time, these microstresses accumulate and translate into a state of chronic low-level contraction that persists even when we are attempting to rest. As night falls and the body signals it is time for sleep, this muscle's lingering tension can activate neural pathways associated with alertness, sending subtle but insistent messages to the brain that something is amiss. The result is often a partial awakening, a restless stir, or a feeling of being on edge despite the darkness and quiet that should invite relaxation. What makes this muscle particularly interesting is its connection to both the skeletal framework and the autonomic nervous system. It is situated in such a way that its contraction influences not only posture but also breathing patterns, spinal alignment, and even circulation, which in turn modulate the body's internal sense of safety and readiness for sleep. When this muscle remains tense, it subtly signals the sympathetic nervous system to maintain a state of vigilance, keeping the body in what could be called a low-grade alert mode, a state incompatible with restorative rest. Scientific studies on sleep physiology and muscle tension reveal that postural muscles are highly responsive to both emotional and physical stress, acting almost like sensors that integrate experiences of the day into physical states. A minor episode of anxiety, a stressful meeting, or a prolonged period of forward-leaning work can all manifest in this muscle as contraction patterns that persist into the night. Understanding this dynamic allows us to see that sleep disturbances are not always rooted in the obvious factors like noise or light but can emerge from within the body itself, from the ways in which our musculature carries and stores tension. The 2-minute exercise that targets this muscle works precisely because it brings conscious attention to what is otherwise unconscious, interrupting habitual patterns of contraction and allowing the nervous system to shift toward a state of rest. By recognizing that this waking muscle is both a structural stabilizer and a sensitive communicator with the nervous system, we can appreciate the intimate interplay between body and mind, between tension and alertness, and between daily habits and nightly rest. This awareness transforms the way we approach sleep hygiene, not as a matter of environment alone but as a dialogue with the body itself, where minor interventions can produce profound physiological and psychological effects, gently retraining the body to release what it has unconsciously held throughout the day. When we consider the impact of a 2-minute, targeted exercise on the muscle that often wakes us at night, what is remarkable is how quickly and efficiently the nervous system responds to even small, deliberate movements. The exercise works not merely by stretching or relaxing the tissue superficially, but by engaging the muscle in a way that communicates directly with neural circuits controlling alertness and calm. When the muscle is consciously activated and then released, it sends inhibitory signals through the spinal cord and into the autonomic nervous system, the complex network that balances sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. The sympathetic system is responsible for vigilance, the fight or flight response, while the parasympathetic system promotes restoration, relaxation, and deep sleep. By gently stimulating and then releasing this particular muscle, the body receives feedback that it is safe to reduce sympathetic activity, allowing the parasympathetic system to gradually dominate. This process is subtle, occurring at the level of reflex arcs and sensory neurons that monitor muscle tension and body position, yet it has profound consequences for how the body perceives safety, readiness, and restfulness. The technique works in part because the nervous system does not distinguish between voluntary and involuntary movements when interpreting muscle signals. It responds to patterns of contraction and release with an almost instinctive recalibration of tone throughout the body. As the muscle relaxes, the surrounding tissue and fascia, which are densely populated with sensory receptors, transmit a cascade of signals indicating that the body can safely reduce alertness. Over time, repeated practice reinforces these pathways, creating a learned response in which the nervous system increasingly associates the exercise with relaxation, and even minor contractions no longer trigger wakefulness during the night. There is also a chemical component to this process. Muscle activation and release influence local circulation, improving oxygen delivery and flushing out metabolites that might otherwise irritate sensory nerves or contribute to subtle inflammatory signals, both of which can increase the body's sensitivity to arousal. The brain, in turn, interprets these changes as signals to lower cortisol and other stress-related neurotransmitters, enhancing the sense of calm that allows sleep to deepen. The elegance of this mechanism is that it relies on the body's natural feedback systems rather than external interventions, pharmaceuticals, or prolonged routines. It demonstrates how interconnected the musculoskeletal system is with neurological regulation, and how conscious awareness can guide physiological change in a matter of moments. Scientific research on neuromuscular feedback and sleep physiology supports this approach, showing that even brief interventions that modify muscle tension can have measurable effects on heart rate variability, parasympathetic dominance, and overall sleep quality. This 2-minute exercise exemplifies how intentional movement is not merely a physical act but a form of communication with the nervous system, a way to signal safety, reduce unnecessary arousal, and restore balance. By focusing attention on the precise engagement and release of this waking muscle, we harness a natural, immediate pathway to relaxation, illustrating the profound capacity of the body to regulate itself when given thoughtful, deliberate input. The way this particular muscle interacts with the surrounding tissue and fascia is a remarkable example of how localized tension can influence the body on a much larger scale, extending far beyond the immediate area of contraction. Fascia, the connective tissue that envelops muscles, organs, and bones, forms a continuous network throughout the body, transmitting mechanical signals, supporting posture, and integrating movement patterns. When the muscle that often disrupts sleep remains tense, it does not act in isolation. The surrounding fascia becomes similarly restricted, creating subtle but pervasive patterns of stiffness that can travel along the spine, across the shoulders, and even into the chest and diaphragm. This interconnectedness means that the tension of a single stabilizing muscle can influence breathing efficiency, spinal alignment, and the overall sense of bodily ease. During sleep, the nervous system continuously monitors proprioceptive input, signals from muscles and connective tissue that indicate position, movement, and tension. If fascia and muscle remain tight, these sensory signals can be misinterpreted as the need for vigilance, keeping the body in a low-grade state of alertness that interrupts restorative cycles. Engaging the muscle deliberately through a simple 2-minute exercise does more than relax the tissue itself. It generates a ripple effect across the fascial network, reducing stiffness, improving elasticity, and sending reassuring feedback to the nervous system that conditions are safe for deep rest. In practical terms, this means that an exercise targeting a relatively small and localized muscle has consequences for overall physiology, helping to normalize posture, enhance thoracic expansion, and improve diaphragmatic breathing patterns. These changes are subtle and cumulative, but they shift the body from a state of tension to one of readiness for restoration. Scientific investigations into myofascial connections and neuromuscular signaling illustrate that muscles and fascia are not merely structural components but active participants in regulating autonomic balance, sleep quality, and even emotional states. The pathways are bidirectional. Muscle tension influences neural signaling, and neural signaling influences muscle tone, creating a dynamic feedback loop that can either perpetuate alertness and disruption or, when intentionally guided, facilitate relaxation and repair. By understanding the muscle's fascial interactions, we can appreciate why small, deliberate interventions can produce outsized effects on the body's readiness for sleep. This perspective transforms the notion of exercise from a purely mechanical activity to a form of communication, a way to inform the nervous system that it is safe to transition from vigilance to restoration. Each deliberate stretch, release, or engagement of the muscle sends information through the fascial network, coordinating posture, breathing, and autonomic activity in a manner that supports uninterrupted rest. Over time, this conscious practice reshapes the body's habitual tension patterns, retraining both fascia and muscle to maintain a state of ease rather than contraction, and in doing so, it illustrates the profound sophistication of human physiology, where even minor adjustments at a single site can reverberate through multiple systems, harmonizing musculoskeletal function, nervous system regulation, and the subtle orchestration of sleep cycles. The power of consistent practice lies not simply in the mechanical action of moving a muscle, but in the profound way it integrates awareness of the body with the automatic processes of the nervous system, creating a dialogue between conscious intention and involuntary function. When we perform this 2-minute exercise each night, we are not merely stretching or activating tissue, but engaging the body's feedback systems, training the nervous system to recognize a new pattern of relaxation. Every contraction and subsequent release sends signals through sensory neurons, informing the spinal cord and brain about the state of tension and safety within the body. Over time, this repeated signal reshapes the habitual responses of the nervous system, establishing a learned association between the exercise and a reduction in alertness, a subtle retraining that makes the body less likely to awaken in the middle of the night. The integration of mind and body in this process is crucial. Awareness amplifies the effect, as the nervous system responds more robustly when it perceives intentionality behind movement. Conscious attention to the muscle not only promotes mechanical relaxation but also engages higher cortical regions that modulate autonomic function, essentially teaching the body that it can release tension safely. The feedback loop created by consistent practice extends beyond the immediate muscle, influencing surrounding stabilizers and postural networks, and gradually establishing a state of balance in which the body maintains relaxation even outside of the exercise itself. This is why a simple, short intervention can have lasting effects. It reshapes neural pathways, conditions sensory input, and aligns musculoskeletal behavior with autonomic regulation, harmonizing physical and physiological responses that support restorative sleep. The beauty of this integration is that it highlights the body's innate capacity for self-regulation, demonstrating that even minor, deliberate adjustments can lead to systemic changes. Scientific studies in neuromuscular physiology and sleep science confirm that repeated, mindful activation of stabilizing muscles influences heart rate variability, parasympathetic dominance, and overall sleep architecture, emphasizing the body's responsiveness to subtle cues over time. By engaging in the exercise consistently, we are essentially teaching the body a new pattern of tension release, one that becomes progressively more automatic as neural circuits adapt and fascial networks regain elasticity. It exemplifies how patience, repetition, and awareness converge to reshape habitual responses, illustrating the intimate connection between movement, perception, and involuntary physiological regulation. This practice fosters a form of embodied mindfulness, where physical sensation, conscious attention, and autonomic adjustment operate in concert, reinforcing the body's natural inclination toward rest. Each repetition of the exercise contributes to a cumulative retraining effect, gradually recalibrating the muscle's tone, reducing unnecessary tension, and promoting a state of preparedness for deep, uninterrupted sleep, which over time transforms the habitual patterns that once provoked nightly awakenings into a new, stable equilibrium of relaxation, demonstrating the remarkable adaptability of human physiology when guided by intentional, mindful practice. The simplicity of a 2-minute exercise masks the remarkable biological sophistication underlying its effects, revealing how small, deliberate interventions can harmonize the complex systems that govern human physiology. When we focus on a single muscle that has the potential to disrupt sleep, we are not just addressing a localized tension but influencing an intricate network of musculoskeletal, neurological, and autonomic processes that together determine how the body enters and maintains rest. Each subtle contraction and release sends ripples of information through sensory neurons into the spinal cord and brainstem, modulating the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. In this way, a minor physical action generates systemic consequences, allowing the nervous system to recalibrate, reduce unnecessary alertness, and encourage restorative patterns of sleep. Beyond neural signaling, the exercise engages the fascial network, which connects muscles, tendons, and organs in a continuous lattice of connective tissue. Fascia is rich with mechanoreceptors that interpret tension, compression, and stretch, transmitting these signals across the body and influencing posture, breathing, and even emotional states. By consciously releasing the muscle, we soften the surrounding fascia, which reduces inhibitory feedback that would otherwise maintain hypervigilance during the night, allowing the body to transition more smoothly into a state of relaxation. The exercise also has circulatory and metabolic effects. Improved local blood flow delivers oxygen and nutrients while removing metabolic byproducts that can irritate sensory nerves, reinforcing the signals that the body is safe to rest. Over repeated practice, these effects accumulate, establishing a learned physiological pattern in which the body associates the 2-minute intervention with reduced tension and enhanced calm. This cumulative adaptation demonstrates the body's capacity for neuroplasticity and musculoskeletal retraining, showing that even brief, intentional actions can reshape habitual responses that previously contributed to nightly awakenings. Scientific research supports the idea that small, precise interventions can produce outsized effects on systemic function, particularly when the intervention is paired with attention and awareness. The elegance of this approach is that it works with the body's own regulatory mechanisms rather than against them. It does not rely on medications or external devices, but instead harnesses the natural dialogue between muscle, fascia, nervous system, and autonomic function. Each repetition of the exercise deepens this dialogue, reinforcing pathways that support relaxation, improving the body's resilience to stress, and enhancing the quality and continuity of sleep. This principle illustrates a fundamental truth about human physiology. Minor, focused actions can initiate cascading effects that influence multiple interconnected systems simultaneously. By engaging with this muscle consciously, we reveal how interconnected and adaptable the body truly is, highlighting the sophisticated orchestration that underlies something as seemingly simple as sleep. It demonstrates that even a brief, deliberate practice can recalibrate musculoskeletal alignment, nervous system responsiveness, and autonomic balance, aligning them in a harmonious pattern that fosters restorative rest, showing the remarkable efficiency of small interventions when they are informed by awareness and repeated with consistency.